Bah humbug, motherfuckers.
Hey, Drew. Wait, whoa. Now that's some salty language, man. It was my understanding that this is a family show that we're moving through. So
Yeah,
let's keep it at the minimum PG-13. Okay.
yeah. We watched Violent Night last night, but we're not reviewing that, are we? I watched the Muppet Christmas Carol. Is that what we're not supposed to watch?
Well, in that case, hey ho, Kermit the Frog here, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond. We've got a really good show plan for you today. Hey, Horror Sci-Fi and Muppets and Charles Dickens and Christmas Carol fans. That was a mouthful. We're finally here, the last video of the year, and it's gonna be, and you guys voted for it, a Muppets Christmas Carol video. And today we got two special guests. First guest is we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Eric Wright.
Hello. I don't know if I'm a legend, but I'll take that compliment. Thank
I mean,
you.
you're listening to my book, man. Don't sell yourself
Okay.
short.
You know what? Thank you. You're a
And
legend
then,
as well.
for our second guest, he's Lackey, but not least, we got from the Fear God podcast, Mr. Reed Lackey in the house. How's it going,
How you doing,
gentlemen?
everybody? Doing well. I'm excited to be here talking
Oh,
about
yeah,
this movie,
absolutely.
one of my
Thank
favorites.
Thank you for being on here. I gotta say, I'm a little bit disappointed that the Jim Carrey version didn't get much love because that's my personal favorite
okay.
version.
Oh, that's
Okay.
fair.
Interesting.
This one, I think, is my personal favorite as well.
Yeah, no,
so.
it's a close second for sure. Either this or like Scrooged, with Bill Murray.
Oh, that was
I
that
have
was
a,
another one I was like on there.
Oh, absolutely. I have
Yeah.
yet a different personal favorite. Mine
Yeah.
is the Clive Donner directed George C. Scott as Scrooge from 1984. That's
And
my
he's
personal
really
favorite.
good
Again, a
in the
really good
part.
one.
And he's really good in the part. I think he delivers the lines really like almost like he's a sadomasochist, like he's enjoying saying these awful things to people.
He's-
Where Jim Carrey's more the traditional
Really does enjoy it.
cold-hearted Scrooge. But I mean,
And
it's
knowing
like,
who George C. Scott was, he probably really did enjoy saying some of those cold-hearted
Yeah,
things.
that's a fair point.
and
It's
to
a-
me, Ebenezer Scrooge is like James Bond or Batman or Dracula. Like there's just so many different interpretations you can do with it. But real quick, before I go any further, I'm repping some FOG Fogmers with my Fear God mug.
Aw, that warms my heart. That is
definitely.
delightful.
And I got some eggnog, so that warms my heart.
Oh, that is delightful. Man, this is my favorite time of year to put like some wonderful like seasonal concoctions together, whether it be like some spiced apple cider or some eggnog or something. Like I love it. I love warm drinks in cold weather. It's one of my favorite things.
Speaking of
Love
eggnog, I
it.
take a little drink of my eggnog.
Very nice. Very nice.
It's very
But you
eggnoggy. So real quick, we got a quick announcement for our first video of the new year. Me and Eric are gonna review a 80s fantasy movie. And I was gonna do a random name generator for this video. I totally forgot. I just can't remember it. So but yeah, we'll just put all the ones that me and him talked about in a poll.
Okay.
That's gonna be going up tomorrow when you're seeing this. Because by the way, this is going up on Christmas.
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
That's
on Christmas Day.
Yeah. So I think some of them are. I think one of them was like Labyrinth. We got Willow on there. Highlander. So be looking forward to that.
Classics.
I
love Highlander.
Yeah.
Such a great movie.
Connor McLeod. So, real quick, to get in the spirit of things, I thought it'd be fun to talk about some Christmas music classics or favorites. And I'll kind of go around the room. I'll let you go first, Mr. Lackey. What are some
Oh
songs that you like to listen to this time of year?
man. Well, in the broader conversation of Christmas music, the Charlie Brown soundtrack, the soundtrack to A Charlie Brown
Oh
Christmas
yeah,
always
Chef's
just
kiss.
brings me, yes, it always
Mhm.
just brings my heart warmth. If I had to pick a personal favorite Christmas song, like just that encompasses everything, multiple different renditions and everything like that, mine would be Silent Night. I have always had a soft
Mhm.
spot in my heart for Silent Night. I love Silent Night. I would also mention, I'm not going to try to take everybody's. I would also mention Oh Holy Night usually makes me cry when I hear it, but it can be a bit big. Most of the
right,
time, Oh Holy Night is usually really big. And one of the things I love about Silent Night is because it is a little bit more intimate. It can lend itself to a lot of different kinds of interpretations, vocally, musically, things like
right.
that. So I love hearing different people's takes on it. Sometimes people jazz it up.
Mm,
Sometimes people slow it down, nice piano or whatever, and its malleability makes it really appealing. Plus, I just love the song.
right. And I
Um,
think Lindsey Sterling just did a cover of that. Like she just put one out.
ooh,
Yeah.
that's cool. I haven't heard that one yet. That's cool. I'll have to seek that out. After I give you both an opportunity, I may circle back with my favorite like pop cultural song that's
Mhm.
not like a traditional Christmas song, but I don't want to risk taking one of yours if one of you mention it. So
Yeah.
I'll pause for there, but I might swing back if it's okay
Yeah.
with my favorite
On a
pop
side
culture.
note, before I get to you, Eric,
Mhm.
my favorite like religious Christmas song is
Mm-hmm.
"Mary Did You Know," and as you
Uh,
know, Reed, I don't identify as Christian, but just something about
Yeah,
that song really gets to me.
it's a beautiful song. No,
Yeah.
I totally understand. It's well structured. It's
Mm,
got my favorite line from that song, just because of the poetry of it, is this child that you've delivered will soon deliver you. I think that's a really
mhm.
powerful and kind of there's a poetry to it that's really
Yeah,
arresting. And I can see how people, even when they don't identify as Christian or aren't religious as well, can get moved by the simplicity of the poetry of that song. I adore that song, and I
sure.
absolutely understand and
It
yeah,
resonate.
becomes
and
Yep,
universal at that point, even
even
yep,
beyond
if
just
the
religion.
whole
Yeah,
Jesus
yep,
Christ
absolutely.
story is more like a myth or a legend, it's still a beautiful story if you really get down to it.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful.
So Mr. Eric White, what is some of your favorite Christmas music?
so if we were going like traditional, like classic Christmas songs, my favorite one has always been "Carol of Bells" because it's
Ooh.
Ooh, good choice.
just builds and builds and builds and builds, and it's like 2 minutes and it's done.
Mm.
Hmm.
And it never lets up, and I don't, I love that one. That's my favorite classic one. But if we're gonna toss out some like pop ones, to tie in back to a review we just did about Die Hard, there's the Run DMC classic, "Christmas in the Hollies," which is one of my all-time favorites. Play it every
Right,
year,
right.
sort of thing.
Awesome.
So some of my favorites. So as my audience might know, I'm a big metalhead. Metallica, Black Sabbath,
Mm.
Iron Maiden, all those guys, all the old school metal guys. And
Hmm.
I love when they take classical music and put it and metalize it because you wouldn't have metal without classical music. Let's be honest. And
Sure.
Hmm.
the one Christmas song that truly rocks my world is Trans Siberian Orchestra's Christmas Canon Rock.
Yep.
Like you have the
Ooh,
piano, and then as soon as that guitar comes in, man, that just
it's
blows me
awesome.
away.
Classic.
Kind of keeping the tradition of like like metal. Um, it's from a metal band, but it's not a metalized version of this song. It's more of an acoustic version. But Zach Wild's band, Black Label Society, the first Noel is really amazing. I love
Huh.
that,
Mm.
and he has a
Didn't
very
even know
like
they did a
unique
version of that.
style of guitar playing, and he really like shows it off here.
Cool.
And one more, kind of off the beaten path. It's actually a score from a movie, and that would be "Setting the Trap" from Home Alone by Mr. John Williams, a legend
Yeah.
Ooh.
all of his own.
Hmm.
Like I love meeting John Williams.
And that was
I,
if memory serves. Now I could be incorrect about this, but if memory serves, isn't that a kind of a riff on Carol of the Bells, or
A
am I
bit,
hmm
yeah. You hear a little bit in
misremembering
there.
that?
hmm
Yeah, yeah, it's cool because I wondered if I remembered the correct tune that you were referring. I
Mm,
love that. I
Yeah.
love the energy
yeah,
around it. It gets you right in the mood for the finale of
yeah.
that story.
Can I say
Oh
one
yeah.
thing real quick?
Sure.
Keep the change, a filthy animal.
I will mention before we leave just that consideration. I have a very, very large soft spot in my heart for Feliz Navidad. I just love it. It just, they're just pop culture songs. That one and right on the same shelf beside it. The version by Andy Williams of "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year." The opening rendition. Usually, I hear that in a lot of movies. It usually just immediately invokes Christmas time, and so I love those as well as more pop cultural staples that are big favorites.
Yeah, and I think they used that in the middle of the Hawkeye series.
I think they did.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know
I think you're right.
Talking about. So yeah, those are some good picks, man. I think you and Eric kind of went more traditional. I kind of went more unorthodox because I'm this kind of guy. That's the way I flow.
That's cool. I mean, Run DMC is classic, so.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I forgot you picked the One DMC thing, but So let's get on to the Christmas Carol. I'll start with you, Eric. Since Reed went first last time, what is your relationship with the Charles Dickens classic? How did you find out about it, and then what are some of your experiences with it?
To be honest, this movie we're talking about today may be the first experience I had with Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. This came out like primetime childhood for me. So this came out in like '92. It came out the same year. Around the same time as Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola movie. I only remember that because I went and saw Muppet Christmas Carol in theaters and was thoroughly terrified by the poster.
I'll read in my audience what he got me for Christmas. He came over today. He gave me.
It's a little Funko Pop. I guess it's Vlad the Impaler when he's in that like ribbed red armor where he looks like super cool at the beginning.
Yeah. That's cool.
But I remember that. Yeah. So that came out around the same time. I remember that because I was terrified of the poster in the lobby. But we went and saw Muppet Christmas Carol. I think that was my first experience with it. So this is like childhood nostalgia here for me.
Right.
And so this is really my favorite version because it's my first version, I think. But as far as other ones, I've seen a lot of cartoon versions over the years, especially after that. Like there was one called The Stingiest Man in the World or something.
The Rankin Bass one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember it being great when I was a kid, but I haven't went back and revisited it. So I don't know. But the Alistair one, it's a classic. George C. Scott's my personal live action favorite version of Scrooge. Although this is my favorite retelling of the story.
Right.
Awesome.
And I haven't seen the Jim Carrey one. I still haven't seen it yet. I'm sorry, Drew.
Yeah,
I know it's your favorite.
It's really good. There's some parts in that movie where they're kind of distended and it looked great in 3D in the theater when I went to see it in theaters. Watching that
in theaters in 3D. Yeah.
Real quick, Reed, what is your relationship with this story?
Man, where to begin? So I'm going to try to keep this under 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, because A Christmas Carol is my favorite book ever written by anybody. So A Christmas Carol is peak number one. My favorite way to experience this story is I try to do this every year. I don't think I've succeeded in doing it every single year, but most years I do this. I find a pocket of time. I can usually do it in about 2.5 hours now. I pour myself a nice warm drink. We were talking about warm drinks earlier. I sit by Christmas lights or by the Christmas tree and I read it cover to cover. I love this book. I've read it multiple times, listened to the audiobook. The way I first encountered it was as a child. My very first exposure to it was Mickey's Christmas Carol, which was a Disney Channel staple. Yeah. That was my first exposure to it. But right on the heels of that, we're talking within a few years of having seen that, I saw the George C. Scott one that you mentioned, Eric, and that remains my favorite rendition of it or you said it was your favorite Scrooge. It's probably my favorite telling of the story. And so I love that version, but I have since absorbed every single year, just everything I can get my hands on. I almost became a bit of a collector to where if there was a version of A Christmas Carol out there, I wanted to see it, wanted to read it, wanted to hear it. I've heard virtually every audiobook I can get my hands on, the Tim Curry one, the Patrick Stewart one, the Jim Dale one. I have seen it live performed. I got to go to the Amundsen Theater where I got to see Bradley Whitford play Ebenezer Scrooge in a rendition of this performance. And side note, Jeff Goldblum was in our audience. Got to
I saw that on
briefly
Facebook.
meet him. Yeah, got to briefly meet him, and he was an absolute treasure.
I am Ebony to Scrooge. The Humbug.
It's great. I also had the privilege when my several years ago, my home church did a performance of A Christmas Carol, and I had the privilege of playing Jacob Marley in that production, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And then I've also, just for fun, for no reason whatsoever, I recorded a narration of this when I was a teenager. Just read the book and recorded it on tape. Of course, I love the Muppets Christmas Carol. There are very, very few versions of this story that I don't at least appreciate. But because I have seen so many of them, the list of favorites is short. The long tail of respect goes down the line. I admire a lot about the Jim Carrey one. Definitely think it's worth watching, Eric. I admire a lot about it. It doesn't quite hit the peak for me, but they do some really inventive things with it, particularly performance-wise. So yeah, I mean, like this, I'll stop it there because I could gush ad infinitum. Right, yeah. There may not be a version of this story that I haven't been exposed to. So yeah, I love it.
So you know everything right now. So you're coming in like, well, I feel like a newbie by comparison. You're gonna teach us so much about this story right now.
I soak it up every year. This is my favorite. Yeah, yep. Absolutely.
Just on a side note, and I'll probably link this video in the description. Back in the early 2000s, there was a animated one that went really under the radar. Never seen it. I just remember seeing advertisements for it. And Kate Winslet actually plays Belle. And she has a song on the soundtrack called What If? Beautiful song. And somebody took that song and actually put it to scenes from the Jim Carrey version. And it really breaks my heart every time I see it. I mean,
oh, man.
Yeah. So, I'm excited for you to see
I have seen that version. Yeah. It's really good.
Didn't Nicolas Cage play Jacob Marley in that one?
That is good memory, Drew. Yes, Nicolas Cage played Jacob Marley in the version where Kate Winslet plays Belle. What's cool about that one, we're talking about Muppet Christmas Carol, but what's cool about that one is that particular animated version chose to spend a bit more time on some side characters. They give a little bit more depth and attention to like Mr. Fezziwig and Belle. She gets her own, song and stuff like that.
Mr. Fozziwig.
Right, exactly. So it's notable for that and notable for Nick Cage as Marley. But yeah, worth seeking out, worth digging around. I forget exactly. I think you're right about it being like early 2000s, maybe like 2000 or 2001. But I think you could probably do a little internet searching for Christmas Carol Kate Winslet and probably ping it somewhere. That's
interesting. Right. That's interesting because there was a Belle song in this one too. They got cut out last minute.
Exactly. If you saw it in the theater, you see it, and if you owned it on VHS, it had the song in it. But
supposedly it's coming back. Supposedly it's coming back to Disney Plus. I watched the Disney Plus version. It wasn't on there.
And it wasn't on there. Now, where it is, though, so I know we're getting into Muppet Christmas Carol now, and that may be a bit ahead of the game. No, but it's okay. I will say that song you're referencing is available on Disney Plus in the little extras column. So, like when you pull up Muppet Christmas Carol, if you go to the extras button, it is there and you could see the scene. It's not integrated into the film. And I hope that's not what they meant when they said they were going to add it on there, because that's not the same. It breaks up the rhythm. But it is available to watch in that little extras section on Disney Plus.
So before we get into the review, my relationship with this story, I remember a long time ago, I had a babysitter who brought the Flintstones version on a videotape with her. And we watched that one. So that was my earliest recollection of the story. There is a Disney cartoon in the 90s called Pepper Ann, and they did a Valentine's version of this. Used to have the VeggieTales version with an Easter version. The Jim Carrey one I saw in theaters, made a pretty big impact on me, obviously. Saw the George C. Scott version, Muppets. Fun fact, I actually played Peter Crassett, the old Crassett child in a middle school version of this.
Nice.
That's awesome. I had one line, and I said, I can't remember, but it was exactly what it was, but it was like, I can go to work, father. Um, you're not making enough for Tiny Tim with what Mr. Scrooge is paying you. Then I have to go get Tiny Tim from his bedroom later in the scene. So I wanted Scrooge so much because I thought the kid that played Scrooge was so boring.
Oh no.
Or I wanted the ghost of Christmas yet to come. That would have been so fun to play like a dark, evil
Right.
kind of character.
Great.
But you'd
It's
been
great.
faceless.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have. No one would have saw you, right?
Now,
The
You would
cloak
just been
and the
walking
pointy.
oh,
around
this
in
is
the
this is
cloak
middle
and
school. This is very low budget. Kind of my relationship with this story. I love the story. I think it's the best redemption story ever. Honestly,
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Yeah.
yeah. Just on a side note, just real quick before we get into the video, I know we keep stalling. My favorite part in the Jim Carrey version is when he sees Scrooge sees the error of his rays, and he sees that Tiny Tim ended up dying because of his selflessness. And then he
Mm-hmm.
goes up the stairs. Oh, and then Bob, no, yeah, Bob Crassett goes up the stairs, and he stops, and it's right where Scrooge is at. But obviously, Bob can't see Scrooge, but Scrooge can see him, and it's the look on Scrooge's face,
Mm.
and then that look that Jim Carrey gives, like he's like, "Oh crap! Like this is what happened when I'm selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Like people die.
Yeah.
Like I did not realize
That's
that."
it. It's a pretty great performance, especially given the fact that it's motion capture and, still so much of Carrey and his natural talents come through there. I don't know if you remembered this, Eric, but not only is Jim Carrey Scrooge, but he plays multiple roles in it. And then
Oh, I didn't know
playing
that.
Bob Cratchit. Yeah. And then playing Bob
Oh.
Cratchit is Gary Oldman. And Gary Oldman plays a number of different roles in it as well. It's a very well performed piece.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we're kind of pitching on you that like before we get into Muppet Christmas Carol,
Right.
prioritize it this season. it's
Go
fun.
watch
It's
it.
worth your time.
Get over here and watch
Yeah.
it right now. Okay, yeah. Check.
I mean, I watched like the Evil Dead remake right after we did our Evil Dead review, so
Nice.
Yeah. Listen.
now it's time that you owe me a favor. Get on that. Okay, so let's actually get to the Muppets Christmas Carol version. We're not going beat for beat throughout the video.
Sure. Sure.
When I'm like highlighting anything, just feel free.
Sure. Mhm.
I love the opening title to this movie. Yeah, it just warms my heart. And you have a pretty underrated Christmas song in here called "Good King Wenceslas," and it was about a duke. I don't remember what time period, but he was very charitable to a poor man, and that's
Mhm.
kind of the theme of this story. So I thought that was real neat that they put that in there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no,
Mhm.
it's a classic beginner band learning song that they make you learn whenever you first start learning band. I played saxophone in high school, and so
nice.
definitely have learned
Okay.
Good Clean Wenceslas before. But yeah, no, it's nice. Also, nice model work at the top, like all that stuff where we're pulling back over those titles.
Beautiful.
Like, really great model work.
Beautiful.
Amazing
It's so
stuff
much
up there.
fun to see the Muppets in like Victoria, London. Like that's just so like funny to me.
Oh yeah,
It's-
no, all this stuff is wonderful. So many just like one-off gags. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And I think, and I adore the Muppets writ large. I mean, I don't know if I ever saw a piece of Muppet material that I didn't love. Maybe not that I didn't love, but at least didn't enjoy.
Right.
But I feel like you make some really good points about how they're perfectly suited for this particular piece because we're going into already it's lavish costumes, it's Dickensian costumes, and they work really well with this just diversity of collection of different characters, large ones, small ones. You get to hear from the mice in the hole in the wall, like it's just even the vegetables don't like him, like it's just all these wonderful little touches that really only a property like the Muppets would have the freedom to play in that little sandbox.
Right.
And one of my favorite things about that is the way I think I can't remember, Drew, if it was you or Eric said like so many little wonderful throwaway lines and bits. That idea that they just pepper some things in which makes rewatching it so much more fun because I forgot they said that. Like there's these little inserts that aren't necessarily highlighted. You get the big laughs, but then you get all these wonderful little touches that are baked throughout that I think the Muppets as a property are really, really good at, and I think they're exemplary in this particular.
So since you're the Charles Dickens expert, Mr. Lackey, there are some lobsters that appear in this movie.
Yeah.
That's a reference to Dickens, maybe? I thought it was.
There's like a lobster in the dark. There's a lobster in the so like it's in the background somewhere. There's a cellar door or something, and like there's a lobster like peeking out from it. And there's I think there's a lobster line in Dickens where he's like something about a lobster in the darkness or something like that. Or somewhere in there. It may not be in Christmas Carol, but there's like a weird.
Yeah, what's funny is so openly what you're describing about the potential connection between lobster and Charles Dickens is, it is ringing a bell, but I would be pretentious if I was like, oh yeah, that's a reference to I don't know.
Right,
I don't know
page
the reference.
49, yes.
Right, exactly. It is ringing a bell and was probably intentional. But one thing I would so I don't know about the specific lobster call out you're citing, but I will say, perhaps just taking the lobster out of the pot and moving to something else. One of the things that I think is brilliant about this rendition that I don't know if I've ever seen. No, I don't think I've ever seen this anywhere else. It's Charles Dickens as a character in the piece. I think it is brilliant. I think it was a brilliant stroke of storytelling inclusion to have Gonzo play Charles Dickens because he and Rizzo are able to make commentary. They act as an audience surrogate. They're able to bring us along in the same way Dickens's novel brings us along.
They act as this sort of like Shakespearean chorus that like ushers us into scenes and out of scenes. And they get to bring in a lot of that like Dickens not the words on the page, but any sort of like descriptory fillers that they can bring in and sort of like sell scenes and stuff like that. It's wonderful, and they're great. They're great like interplay between these two like ridiculous characters. It's nice like buttons on the scenes that would be really dark otherwise, which is a really dark version for like a kids movie. This one is.
No, absolutely.
And I will say my favorite comedic bit between those two characters in this film is when Scrooge is up in his room and Gonzo and Rizzo are outside his house. And like Gonzo is describing everything that's going on, and Rizzo's like, "Okay, I don't believe you. How do you know what he's doing up there?" And then Gonzo goes, "All authors of are omnipresent." And then Rizzo goes, "Hoity-toity, Mr. Godlike Complex."
Mr. Godlike Smarty Pants.
Yeah.
Smarty Pants. How does he do that?
I like the opening song. It paints Scrooge as this really horrible person.
A lot of catchy tunes in this. A lot of catchy tunes in this production.
Great soundtrack. Yes.
Yeah. Which is something that you normally don't associate with Christmas Carol. I haven't seen a whole lot of musical versions of it. So this one always stuck out to me, just in the sense that it's not the same as other iterations that I've seen, which do either stay pretty close to the novel or at least play it as a straight drama for the most part.
Right.
So this one has always stuck out to me in that sense.
I will say something that I don't know how they pulled this off with the music, but I will say not every single song on the soundtrack, but at least 4 or 5 of them are simply great Christmas songs. Like they work in the piece, they progress the narrative, but then like for instance, Drew, you cited the opening song Scrooge. I am not exact. It's not as culturally relevant, but song structure, energy, everything. I mean, that's not far behind You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch for me. Like it's similarly toned in terms of like, this is a great sort of depiction of an iconic literary character and works apart from the interior of the film itself. And I think, and I always get teary and emotional whenever I hear It Feels Like Christmas. That's a song I just play on the Christmas playlist because it's not tied exclusively to this piece
Mm.
and works more broadly, I think, in a brilliant way. There are, like I said, 4 or 5 songs on this soundtrack that I'm in awe of how they did it, because they made a song that works for the piece, but works outside of the piece almost as well.
I agree wholeheartedly. For me, my one that makes me teary eyed is always "Thankful Heart." Is the one near the end.
Beautiful.
Whenever Scrooge comes around, oh my god, that one's just
It's beautiful.
heartbreaking. It's great.
I
Keep
like
going.
the
Sorry,
one.
lovely.
I can't remember what the song's called, but the one that the Ghost of Christmas Present sings, and he actually, that's my favorite depiction of that
It's a good one
character.
too. Yeah.
I love
Mhm.
that depiction. He's I love the part
Wonderful.
when he first get introduced to Scrooge, and he says, "Come in here, man." There's something
Mhm.
about him saying
Know
man.
me
Like,
better.
It warmed my
Yeah.
heart.
Oh, and he's a
wonderful.
great puppet too. It's like a wonderful, like full-size
Oh,
man
yeah.
puppet where he's got working arms and his eyes blink and they move. If you watch his eyes, they move inside like the head itself, which is great. So that means that there's
Yeah.
someone in there doing his arms,
Right.
and there's probably someone operating his mouth via like radio control, and someone operating his eyes. And
It's beautiful.
It's great.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Wonderful.
My favorite, going back to the opening song, my favorite line in that is when it was like a choir of characters,
Mhm.
and they say he's really a victim of fear and pride. Look close, and there must be a sweet man inside. And I love that because that's very Dickens. That's something Dickens would
Mhm.
write. And then it turns into like complete Muppet humor. And
Oh,
they
sure.
go, nah.
Mhm.
And I also, going back to the whole Gonzo Rizzo humor, I love when Gonzo comments on how dirty London is, because I've been to London. I can attest to that. And he uses Rizzo to clean the window.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And really, that whole aspect of this movie is really more child friendly version of Deadpool. Like, they're kind of stating the obvious a bit here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, they're like constantly breaking the fourth wall with this
Oh,
and basically talking straight to their audience. Even some of the characters, like any song they're doing, like the Muppets are singing to your audience. Like the only person who plays it straight through the whole movie is Michael Caine for the most
Yeah.
part. Like
Yeah.
everybody else is really playing towards your audience.
Did you like Michael Caine as Ebenezer?
I think he's good. I think, like I said earlier, I don't think he's my favorite Scrooge. I do love that we do see. I feel like it's easy to see his arc in here. I like you start to see him like you see him soften a bit when he goes to his past. You see him warm up a bit when he meets the present, and then you see him get like fearful by the end. So it's like for like a child audience, for me as like an 8-year-old watching it in theaters for the first time, like I understood like what his emotions were, which I think is perfect for this type of movie, especially for the audience that they're trying to get
Right.
to.
Yeah. I'll say 2 things about Michael Caine: that he makes a choice. So this is what I take from his performance. I would agree with pretty much entirety of Eric's assessment. He's not the peak of my favorite, but I think he's doing some interesting stuff here. I think 2 things he does that are unique to his performance. Number one, he's one of the most subtle portrayals of Scrooge. When you talk about that arc, like he's not playing for the rafters. You see these steady little progressions as he makes his way through the different spirits, that you begin to see little layers of change, and Caine is just choosing to be more subtle as a performer. And I think that means that some of the times where it needs to go big, it doesn't quite reach big, especially when you're in a Muppet movie. But I think that was a choice he made because he's in a Muppet movie. I mean, why are you going to go big when you're surrounded by Muppets? You just do your thing and anchor, right there. One other thing I'll mention about Michael Caine's performance: I've seen a lot of performances of Scrooge. Michael Caine's is perhaps the only one that I would cite where early on, we're talking the Jacob and Robert Marley scene, he seems wounded. Scrooge rarely ever seems wounded from the very beginning, but Michael Caine does. That little throwaway line where he says, "You criticize me." He says, "You always criticize me." You can see in those little touches of how like he's been hurt, which is a substance of the exterior, the miserly exterior that he puts forth. Most of the other performances in those early works, Scrooge doesn't show his woundedness. He's very, stalwart and stony, and maybe even a bit, he enjoys the deliciousness of his cruelty, as it were. So I think that's something Michael Caine brought to it that's noteworthy, and that I think is pretty unique to his performance, because I can't recall another performance where that is evident so early on in Ebenezer Scrooge.
Right. And I love how it's the two old hecklers as
Brilliant.
Statler and Waldorf. Yeah, no, it's great. They're
brilliant.
Perfect. I love how they split them up, because it's just Jacob Marley in the original book and all the productions. They split them up to do two. It's nice.
It's wonderful.
Also, it's a weird throwaway joke in there. It's like, so they're wailing. So they're basically Marley and the Wailers. So they're basically Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Yes.
At that point.
Yes. That's awesome. That's great.
That's hilarious. Now I gotta say the money shot in this whole production would have to be Kermit the Frog as Bob Cratchit looking up to the moon, and just that white shot. Like,
beautiful.
I would hang that up on my wall for sure. That's a beautiful shot.
Completely co-signed. I love you calling out that shot, because it is gorgeous, and it so epitomizes the innocence of that character looking up at the wonder of the stars. It's just it's beautiful. It's really wonderful.
Yeah,
Kermit is a wonderful Bob Cratchit. He's great.
And on a technical level too, like the amount of work that had to have gone into doing something like that. It's not just like a character walking out and looking up. There is like, they had to rig the puppet up and then figure out a way to hide it, whoever the puppeteer is, or do a visual trick and like put his legs back in with the sky and everything. So it's ever since the first Muppet movie where Kermit rides a bike through town.
Oh yeah.
They've always tried to one up and reinvent the wheel with each new one. And there's always one or two shots in a Muppet movie where it blows my mind. Like there's a shot early on where the rats are like on two brooms, and it's one continuous shot where it starts on them and then goes down, and I'm like, I don't know how they did it, but I always watch and go, I wonder.
No, it's so awesome. So speaking of the rats, before we get too far away from the beginning, in terms of jokes, so I have lots of moments and scenes that I love in this movie, but I have two favorite jokes, just two. They make me laugh every time. The first one's near the beginning. The second one's near the end. So I may save the second one for when we get there later. But the first one is with all those rats. It's what made me think of it, Eric. With all those rats, when they're sitting in there, and they rattle off. It's pretty clever puns all the way leading up to this. But this is not my favorite joke. It's like when they're rattling off, like, our pens have turned to inksicles. Our assets are frozen. Like, it's just great. Like, it's really fun puns. But then when Scrooge charges in with them on the unemployment line, when it flashes back to them and they're all in like Hawaiian gear and they're like, heat wave, oi, oi. They start
the
singing.
Island in the sun.
It is
good.
It makes me laugh every single time. It is brilliant. I think it is so funny. They're like, heat wave. Oh man, it's great.
My favorite joke in the whole movie is when Scrooge is taken back to his the boarding school that he grew up in, and Sam the Eagle is the headmaster, and he tells Scrooge, "You'll love business. It's the American way." And then Gonzo whispers in his ear, like kind of correcting him, and then Sam goes, "It's is the British way." I thought that was so smart. That was like so funny.
It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. I was just going to mention the second joke. I know it's a little out. We're not at the end, but I think maybe we're just bouncing all around. My second favorite joke is near the end. Of course, Miss Piggy's presence in this. I mean, of course, there was no other. When you cast Kermit as Bob Cratchit, you have to have Miss Piggy as Mrs. Cratchit. Their whole interplay is delightful. But my favorite is where she is about to give Scrooge what is coming to him at the very end. And then she's like, she's telling him off and she's like, you're going to get out of here, and then when at the end where he's like, I'm going to raise your salary. And she says, and I am about to raise you right off the pavement. And then she starts, I just love the little, I'm about to raise you right off the pavement. I was like, it's such a Miss Piggy.
She was
so wonderful.
She was definitely channeling Jackie Gleason with that line.
Oh yeah, Miss Piggy's always been the hothead, and so especially to like Kermit's more cool, even-headed sort ofness. Yeah, Piggy's always the one charges in karate chop, so it fit the character. But it also is just that building tension stuff near the end. It's great, like interplay between those two characters.
It works so well. It works
Yeah.
so well.
And going back to when we're talking about the just certain aspects of this movie or of this version that you can only do with the Muppets, one of those aspects is the fact that the character that is buying, or I think he's buying Scrooge. Yeah, he's buying Scrooge's stuff. Is actually a spider. I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah. He comes. Yeah, you're talking about like near the end after he is past in the future.
Right.
After he's
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
At
Yes.
the
Yes.
now.
And
And I think-
he's got a great like little bit too, whereas like they raise his eyebrows with his hat, so he's like he'll like, huh? And then he'll lower
Yeah.
back down.
That.
It's good stuff.
It's wonderful. I think largely speaking, I mean, we're kind of dancing all around it, but just as a blanket statement, I mean, we've cited, Gonzo as Charles Dickens and, Kermit, Piggy, Cratchit, the Marleys being the hecklers. I know that the Muppet troupe, the puppeteer, the puppets of the Muppet troupe are all wonderful characters that could be inserted in a variety of ways. But I think the choice to use like the character to character ratio here is a bullseye every single time.
Yeah.
Every single like Fozziewig and those hecklers for Jacob and Robert Marley, like every single Muppet that they chose to deploy at different places is bullseye perfect suited for the role in this story that they are fulfilling. I think it's brilliant. And that's not necessarily a given that they would have made all of those correct choices. But I think that's part of why it works so well is because it is, I kid you not, perfectly cast. They have cast the Muppet troupe in the place where they need to be for this story to work as well as it does. I think it's pretty impressive. But one other thing that I want to mention about this, just this piece as a whole, Muppet Christmas Carol, is I feel like one of the more underappreciated aspects of it. I think we were already in the episode when we were mentioning this, but Belle's song. So when Belle, the somewhat controversial element of it is that if you saw this in the movie theater and if you owned it on VHS, Belle has a song called "When Love Is Gone." That is, it is actually the only way that you could see it on like DVD or on previous versions of Disney Plus. The only way you could hear the song is Martina McBride sings it over the credits, and that's the only way you would hear the song otherwise. But Belle actually sings it in the original take on the film, and the reason why it still makes me scratch my head is because without that, you don't have the beautiful bookend of symmetry at the end when the entire cast of characters are singing "The Love We Found." The Belle's song was "When Love Is Gone." And again, when you excise that finale is still charming and cute, but it packs a real wallop when you realize like that was the thing. He lost love. He misplaced it for fortune and seeking wealth and status. And so then at the end finds community. And I think it's really beautiful. I really hope that they follow through on their promise to integrate that song in the actual play of the film, because it's only 3 extra minutes and it is so worth those 3 extra minutes for what it adds to the overall impact of the piece. 100%.
What's weird about it. So I mentioned that I was in the middle school version of this story, and they were our middle school is really nice to us, and they actually showed us the Muppets Christmas Carol version, so we'd be familiar with the story. And I swear, I thought that song was in that one.
If you watch the VHS, you saw it probably.
If they played
it was on
the
VHS.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, wow, for a Muppet movie, like, this is some pretty heavy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And to mention, like, with it cut out, there's like an awkward cut in there. Like, basically, Scrooge says something to her and then, like, cuts to Gonzo and Rizzo, and they're just, like, bawling. I'm just like, why are they so sad? It doesn't really 100%. Make sense. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. But with the song in, like, all of us are Gonzo and Rizzo at the end. Like, we're like, oh my God. Yes, exactly.
Yep. So, do you have anything else you want to say about A Muppet's Christmas Carol, or we can kind of wrap this up with a theme?
I will say that I'll just say that, like, every time I watch this movie, I always pick up like new little one-off bits that I've never seen before. The one this time there's a bit near the beginning where someone's stealing fruit out of the back of the truck, and the fruit like talks is like, "Help! Somebody's stealing me! Stop them!" And like I've never seen that before. So this movie, just in those like a little one-off things, especially with Muppets, like I feel like it's like a wealth of rewatch value. So every time I go back and rewatch it, I always catch something like something new, something silly that's happening in like background or something like that. So I would say it's worth a rewatch if you've already seen it once.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
I would say this is definitely the most like Christmas me of all the versions I've seen for sure.
Yeah, it just ekes out Christmas cheer and goodwill. I mean, like this is a film that continually rewards, to your point, Eric, revisiting it. To your point, Drew, puts you right in the mood for the Christmas spirit. Like if that's what you want, this is a film that will get you there. Almost against your will, it will get you there. It is
Right.
it is a nearly perfect extrapolation of this story, the charm of the Muppets. I mean, it is just it's a treasure. I mean that. Like there's lots of wonderful and amazing films out there. I think this film probably won't ever receive like the full credit that it deserves for being how special it is, because it's Muppets and it's family and it's kids. But I'm telling you, it is something special, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah.
And it's a great introduction for like families, for like people who want to show them and they're like afraid it may be too dark. This one's like a nice one to kind of like ease them into it.
Yeah, and I want to
Absolutely.
ask you, since I know you're a father, was this your son's first version of this story, or was it a different version that you introduced him to?
Perhaps because it was the first version that I was acquainted with. The first one we ever showed him was Mickey's Christmas Carol, but no, we have watched Muppets Christmas Carol multiple times in our household. My son's almost 11. And so yeah, we have seen this at least 3 or 4 times throughout the years.
Yes.
But I think the very first version that I showed him, again because it was how I was first exposed, was the Mickey's Christmas Carol. But yeah,
I know this topic when it comes to the Christmas Carol has been probably talked to death, but let's talk about some themes of this story. So I'll let you go, Mr. Reed Lackey.
Well, so I'm gonna steal one. I'm gonna steal one from another author who I heard talk about this piece. So legendary science fiction and fantasy author Ray Bradbury has always been a favorite of mine. I had the very good fortune and the privilege when I lived in Southern California before he passed away. I got to attend a few of his signings, and one time when I was working for the library, he did a library promotional event, and the staff at the library knew what a big deal Ray Bradbury was to me, so they gifted me. I still can't believe that they did this. They gifted me by being his touch point assistant for throughout the day. So I kind of spent the day with him.
Lucky.
And it was a thing, let me tell you. And so he made an observation about A Christmas Carol that I would like to share. He said one of his favorite things about the redemption story in A Christmas Carol is that when Scrooge wakes up, what people don't always attend to is the fact that Scrooge is a very old man. And when Scrooge wakes up and changes his life, what Ray Bradbury observed is, he said, it's not too late. It's never too late. Like tomorrow I can wake up and it's never too late. I can start right now. You can feel sad for the time that you may have misused or that you may have missed, but it's not too late. And I always, that observation moved me so profoundly about this story. The fact that Scrooge is an old man. He could have been a miserly, mean old, mid-40s, sort of curmudgeon. But the fact that he is very old, and the fact that he is literally on death's doorstep. We don't end the story knowing how much longer he lived. We only know that he lived long enough to completely reverse his reputation. That may have been 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it was. But the beautiful thing about it is that it was not too late, that he could make a new destiny for himself. And Drew, I think earlier you called it one of the greatest redemption stories. I agree. I think this is one of the quintessential redemption stories in all of literature. The idea that a man could be confronted with the poor impact. And I will say this, and then I'll shut up and let other people talk. one of my favorite characters in all of literature is Jacob Marley, because Jacob Marley, and I mean, he may be my very favorite character in all of literature, because Jacob Marley is a damned character. He is a character who is doomed, and he wails and groans and laments all that he has to suffer, and yet in the middle of all of that, he takes the time to offer a path of redemption for someone else. It is implied by the text that he orchestrates this, that he puts together that Scrooge will be confronted so that Scrooge will learn something new. And I find that moving and beautiful, this idea of, because even in that, doomed characters are not necessarily fully doomed if they can offer a chance at redemption for someone else. And I find that, again, deeply moving for myself, and just the concepts of, no, it's not too late. You don't have to sit and wallow in whatever poor choices you feel you've made of things. Instead, you can say, I'm going to do something different. I wish I could have done something different. I'm going to seek to do something different. And that maybe with a little bit of magic and a little bit of good fortune and good luck and quite a bit of help, and the force of will, you can reverse things, and you may not be able to take everything back. I'm not naive, but you can make different choices. And I think that's profoundly beautiful. It's one of the reasons why this is my favorite story. Is all.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Your turn, Mr. Eric.
Sure, and I think to piggyback off of what Reed is saying, to me, as an audience member, I think it has a lot to do with what maybe Dickens wants an audience to take away from this, as far as being self-reflective and then forward-thinking. Basically projecting yourself to a future you want to see for yourself, but then also looking back at things that you've done right and things that you haven't done right. And so living vicariously through Scrooge, we also can look back on ourselves and go like, I said something really mean to that guy and I didn't mean to. I should go back and apologize. I should go make it right. And then from there, you change your present and then hopefully change your future. So, as an audience member, I think we need to take time, and I think this is what the moral of the story to me always is about self-reflection, and then using that reflection to inform your present and your future, where you're going to see yourself going forward from here. So like forward thinking. I've been reading this book called Your Brain is a Time Machine, which is really fascinating. But basically, it's our brain is the most powerful time machine in the world, in the sense that we can project ourselves to a possible future that may be at any point. And so the idea that you can project a better future for yourself through your present has always been fascinating to me. And so I think at the heart of it, like, Scrooge can see a better future for other people if he can change his present, how he is right now, in the next day.
Wow.
So but that's what I get out of it every time.
So I'll go with y'all. So I got two themes. I'll go with one obvious and then one not so obvious. I'll go with the not so obvious real quick, just to bounce off what you're saying. In an interview that Jim Carrey gave for his version, he basically said that Ebenezer Scrooge's words really hurt and they really cut. And I think today with social media, where people can hide behind a keyboard, people say some pretty nasty stuff. I've definitely said some pretty nasty stuff that I regret, and I've read some pretty nasty stuff. So I think, I'm saying don't be a Scrooge. Don't say stuff to some people, because it really hurts some people.
Sure.
And then the obvious one that everybody talks about is the fact that money doesn't always buy you happiness. Because
that's right.
Here's the whole thing about Scrooge was he didn't grow up in poverty or in wealth and privilege. He grew up in a poor family, and I think his father didn't want him, and that's why he sent him off to boarding school.
Right.
And so I think that left a big scar on him, and I think it's why he was kind of reluctant to be with Belle. In a way, because he didn't have enough money to buy him a super nice house at that time. When she's like, "Hey, when are you gonna pop the question?" And then that's when she leaves him, and then and that so in kind of in his mind, he thinks money is what's going to bring me happiness because I'm gonna impress the girl of my dreams or the woman of my dreams by buying her a nice house, like I said. But she didn't want the nice house. She wants me.
Mm.
I was a nice guy, and because
Mhm.
I didn't see that, that's why she left me.
Yeah.
And then you also see that the Cratchits don't have a whole lot of money, but they're more happy than Scrooge because they
Mhm.
realize that surrounding people with the one you love um
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
Sure.
more important. And I just finished
Meager feast.
watching
Yeah.
my favorite Christmas movie of all time. It's A Wonderful Life. Clarence the Guardian
Mm.
Angel rates Jimmy
Mhm.
Stewart. No man is a failure when he surrounds himself with people he loves.
Yeah. When he
Here,
has
here.
friends.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would say to yes and what you just said that I love so much about money doesn't buy you happiness. I have heard a misreading, not necessarily of Muppets Christmas Carol, but of Christmas Carol writ large, that the film or that the story is sort of anti wealth or that it's
Mm,
against
Mm.
the acquisition of wealth, which I will go on record on this show and I have multiple places elsewhere. I profoundly disagree with that reading. I
mm,
think it's not against wealth. I think it's against the stingy hoarding of wealth for merely
Yeah.
yourself. I think it's
right.
against
Mhm.
it's against an ungenerous spirit because Scrooge at the end of the piece is able to be so generous because he has
Mm,
acquired a wealthy status, but
Mhm.
he's now no longer hoarding it merely for himself and merely
mm,
for him. He's sharing it with everyone, and I think
Yeah.
that was a key thing Dickens wanted to hone in on, of saying like because Dickens himself was a wealthy person, but the concept of you can share that with everybody instead of just funneling it into yourself, I think is a
right.
key component. And
Yeah.
and you're right. I think some people think the more, to your point, Drew, some people think, well, the more I have, the happier I'll be,
Mm,
not realizing that actually, no, you can have a whole bunch. And then if you share it and give it away, that is the kind of thing that builds
yeah.
community, and that's the kind of thing
Right.
that builds relationship. And that is where that's I think the
Mm,
spirit of this story is saying like, no, 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 we're meant to share in it. We're meant to
Mhm.
be generous of spirit with each other in it,
right.
and that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing I want to kind of briefly or try to briefly talk about
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that I've never necessarily considered myself like a selfish person. I mean,
Mm.
like at large. But as you both know, I have Asperger's syndrome, and for the longest time, I just had a hard time kind of fitting in.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
you know what I mean. And I'm have this encyclopedic knowledge of like movies and music, and just for so long, I just kept beating myself up. It's like I don't have an outlet. And going back to like surrounding people that you care about, I think
Mm.
by doing this channel and doing this show, with people like you, Eric, and you, Reed, and Jackson, and everybody, I'm actually found my happiness. I'm surrounding myself with people that I care about.
No,
And
that's
Yeah.
that's what
beautiful.
I love.
That's
So that's
beautiful.
kind of it's a little distant from the theme of the story, but that just kind of
No,
made me
it's all about.
feel
No,
happy.
you're right. I mean, it is about community at the end of the day, and that's what ultimately what Scrooge finds is that being not living in a place, but being a part of the community of the place is what's
Right.
important.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. With a thankful heart.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah, that was Muppets Christmas Carol. I freaking love this movie. You guys made
So
me
great.
appreciate it a little bit more for sure because I already love this movie despite there being a bunch of Muppets just running around. Um, but
Well,
yeah,
which is always fun, which is
oh no,
always
for
great,
sure.
Oh,
endlessly.
Yeah.
everything with Muppets, please.
Okay, so with the it being the end of the year, this was a really good year for movies.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so I thought it'd be fun if we count down or if we talk about some of our favorite movies. So we all approach it differently.
Hmm.
Eric hasn't seen a lot of movies this year, so he's gonna do a top five.
I usually spend this time of the year, like these last like 2, 3 weeks, like catching up
Right.
on things. So I'm still in the process of watching a bunch of stuff. So like my list may shift, but I'll give you like my top 5 and then a bunch of honorable mentions that may move in, may stay out, that sort of thing.
Cool.
But
Yeah. Good note.
do you want me to go now? Do you want me to go ahead and say them all, or do you want to?
Real quick, I'm gonna
Okay.
talk about Reed's side. So
Oh, sure. Yeah.
with Reed having his own podcast, he told me that he's gonna do his own top 10. So for this video, he's just gonna give us his top 2 as well.
As a
Or
little
you can
teaser.
Or you can do 10 and 9 to really tease us.
Oh.
To see what made the top spot. So what I will mention, and I won't go more than 4 or 5, and I will neither confirm if they're on the list or not. But what I will do is I'll take a cue from what Eric just did. I will give you my definitive top 2, and then I will mention a handful, just 3 or 4 other films that I really enjoyed or really loved. I don't know if they'll make the top 10. I don't know where they'll land with things, but I'll just mention them because I think they're worth mentioning. So, in brief, my number 2 horror, and I'm sticking with horror, not broadly speaking. So this list is the horror list. This is not the full favorite list of the year. So my number 2 favorite horror film of 2022 was Pearl by Ty West. I loved Pearl. Thought Pearl was a wonderful film. And so won't go into too much about that because I know we're don't have all the time in the world. And my number 1 favorite horror film of the year thus far, and I think it'll be pretty hard to unseat. I have a couple more movies to watch, but it'll be pretty hard to unseat Barbarian. I loved Barbarian.
I love Barbarian. It was so good.
I responded very strongly to Barbarian. So currently and pretty entrenched at my top. Number 2 at Pearl, number 1 Barbarian. Some other films that I did respond to very, very strongly. I was very impressed with The Northman, of course. I thought The Northman was really, really a wonderful production, very interesting. I was very impressed with a little indie film called Nanny. Now, I say indie film. It was distributed by Amazon Studios, so I don't know how indie you can get when you're distributed by Amazon, but it's a film that I have not heard a lot of people talking about, which is why I'm mentioning it. I think Nanny is worth seeing. It's very creepy. It's really strong. So I loved Nanny. I may be in the minority on this. Really loved the new Hellraiser. I thought the new Hellraiser was very strong. I thought it was great. I sort of loved and then parted ways with that franchise, so it felt good to be excited about a new entry in that franchise. So I loved that. Another film, the last one that I'll mention, that I loved, but it's not being talked about very much, which is again why I'm kind of citing it, is a film called You Won't Be Alone. And the film was released, I think, more mid-year or maybe closer to the August-September range. But the one thing I will say about it is it's not traditionally nightmarish in the sense of it's more meditative. It's very slow-paced. Think like a Terrence Malick kind of vibe. But I was so enthralled with this premise, and I won't say too much about it. I will say, look it up, and if you have the chance to see it, be prepared for a pretty slow-paced kind of thing that is incredibly thought-provoking and exceptionally well done. And again, with no spoilers, the final button on You Won't Be Alone entrenched it as like one of my favorite horror films of the year. I thought it was fantastic, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. So I love throwing that out there. So yeah, those are some honorable mentions with my official top 2.
Nice.
All right, your turn, Eric.
Okay, I would agree. I'm gonna roll through my honorable mentions, and I didn't do just horror, so I picked. I'm rolling through all the movies right now through the year, so I'll tell you all the ones that are in my honorable mention right now, which was oddly enough, You Won't Be Alone's in there.
Wow, nice.
Pearl's in there. Elvis, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Hellraiser, Prey, Top Gun Maverick, Barbarian. Hellbenders, which is a tiny little indie movie that I don't see a lot of people talking about either.
Great.
Men, Scream, X, Crimes of the Future, 3,000 Years of Longing, which is a movie I keep thinking about a lot after I watched it. I didn't love it when I watched it, but I keep thinking about it, and so I think maybe that it may sneak in at some point. Nope, and last of all, Halloween Ends. I really enjoyed.
I'm with you on that, Eric. I am with you on that, Eric.
Fucking dagger in my rib cage.
I heard I heard your reviews of it, and Eric, I am on the same wavelength with you.
Yes.
I really responded very positively to Halloween Ends, with apologies to Drew and slow clap
Yes.
to Eric.
Right. And that's the thing
It's super polarizing.
I hear everybody. I get what everybody's saying, but you're marketing the movie a certain way, and he gave us something else. That's what I didn't like about it. It was driving me so crazy. But maybe
It's
watching
fair.
it again,
That's
I'll
fair.
like it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely gonna have to buy it on Blu-ray because I'm doing a little skit that I have planned for when I do my David Gordon Green trilogy next year in October.
Oh, nice. Okay, very cool.
So what is your top 5, Eric?
So yeah, I'll rattle through these pretty quickly too. And they're a little bit of everything. The number 5 is the Bob's Burgers movie, which is a movie that kind of flew under the radar, but I love it. It's got a big heart and it's super sweet. Number 4 is a movie that I think more people should watch, and if you love Marvel movies, you definitely should watch. It's called RRR, which is a Telugu movie from like it's like a Bollywood-esque movie. It's like 3 hours long. It's on Netflix. You won't regret any of it. It is the wildest movie I've ever seen this year. Number 3 is Banshees of Inisherin, which is like a super dark, darkly comedic and very sad. So sad, but it's really good. Number 2 is Everything Everywhere All at Once, maybe the best action movie of the year.
Wonderful
and
film.
then my number 1 is a movie that is 30 years in the making. Maybe Phil Tippett's masterpiece, which is Mad God.
Mad God.
Yeah, Mad God was good.
Yeah,
Mad God freaked me out so much. Yeah. That I have to go see Buzz Lightyear like shortly after.
It cleansed your palate. Yeah.
I need Chris Evans. So, I'll do my honorable mentions real quick so I could get the appointments out of the way. So my honorable mentions throughout the year would be Scream, Father Stew, Mad God, Lightyear. I know this isn't a movie; it's a mini series, but I can kind of consider it a movie in multiple parts. That would be The Offer, about the making of The Godfather.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I love that miniseries. Elvis, Woodstock '99. No, it's a miniseries documentary, but whatever. Studio 666, Honk for Jesus, X, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, the documentary, The Sound of 007, Terrifier 2, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and the movie that me and Eric saw last night by the time after recording this would be the David Harbour Santa Claus movie, Violent Night.
It's awesome.
Ball humbug, mother effers. So
what's your top 10 then? If those are just the runners up, what is your top 10?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a sing a little song for my top 10.
Okay.
Sometimes some crimes go slipping through the class, but these two. It's Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. This movie was just so much fun.
Great.
My mom told me that when I watched this, she could hear me belly laughing throughout the whole movie, and she's like, "What were you watching?" I'm like, "Mom, I'm watching Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. It's like modern day Roger Rabbit." And my boy, Darkwing Duck shows up at the end. Yeah,
it's great. It is. You hit it on the head. It's a real modern day Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. The Northman, a movie that I initially went to theaters to see for Anna Taylor-Joy, because I will go to the theater to see any movie that she's in because I freaking love her. But she's not even like beginning of what's good about this movie. This movie is like so epic, and like every time I think about this movie, I just want to like do like a bunch of different sit-ups and like ab exercises, and then take my shirt off and just go raid a Viking village.
That's awesome.
Nope. Probably had one of the most nerve-wracking scenes ever. This and another one on my list. And then I like how it was a unique take on aliens. Number 7 would be Prey. Probably my favorite Predator movie, or out of the two I've seen.
Second for me.
6. This pains me to say this. Because everybody knows that I'm a huge fan of this character. Wanted it to be my top 3. but it wasn't. It didn't get to the heights that I wanted to. But that would be The Batman. Matt Reeves gave us what he said he was going to give us, and that was just about it. And I loved it. I loved what he gave us, but I wanted something a little bit more, so that's why it's 6.
Okay.
Number 5 would be The Block Phone. Really enjoyed this movie. Definitely joined the Poop Club several times throughout this movie. Very creative too. I thought it was pretty neat. And I actually read the short story before I saw this, and I liked the movie way more.
Nice.
Honestly.
Yeah. Movie was strong. Yeah.
Number 4, Barbarian. When he's down in the basement looking at all the stuff, that was so nerve-wracking because I didn't know what was gonna pop up. And then when Jason Lee goes to the basement, like, it was more funny.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like,
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack with Barbarian, but yeah.
Number 3 would be The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with Nicolas Cage.
Great flick.
Funny movie, and I couldn't believe that Harvey was also the Mandalorian.
It's one that one is still on my list to watch. I haven't seen it yet.
It's so good.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 2 would be The Menu. Basically the Ralph Fiennes character is if Hannibal Lecter and Jigsaw had a baby and that baby became a celebrity chef.
That's awesome.
Plus my girl Anna Taylor's in there, so I have to go see it.
Yeah. Fair point.
And my number 1, this movie was based off a book in the 80s of a very famous horror author, a horror author named Stephen King. I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay, yeah. I think I've heard of him.
Yeah. This movie, had a Disney Channel star by the name of Zac Efron, and it's Firestarter. Like, this movie's just amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did not think I was gonna love this movie. I thought it was gonna be absolute like crap. Hey guys, I'm kidding.
I was about to say, I was like, I was like,
yeah, here's my actual number 1. It's fucking Top Gun Maverick, okay? How can you not like this movie?
Such a great movie.
Yeah, it was
such a great
good. Like, such
a great movie.
It's all about heroic sacrifice. And it was like the perfect summer movie. And I gotta say, I know Tom Cruise is a controversial figure. I don't necessarily like him as a person, but I love him as an actor, as a performer. That part when Hangman saves his life at the end, and then Tom Cruise goes, "You saved me." And then at that moment, I'm like, yes, I truly believe that you are a Navy fighter pilot. And this man just saved your life.
The last 45 minutes or so of that movie are pretty amazing.
Stunning.
Yes. It's unexpected and yet expected. I don't know. It pulls some weird trick over me as an audience member where I knew it was coming, but it still was able to surprise me, which is something I rarely find in movies nowadays.
Yeah, it was so good. I love that movie so much.
I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard somebody say this, and it was a pitch perfect description of Top Gun Maverick. It is one of those rare movies where literally everything went right. Like, everything went right about that movie. Like, it's just one of those things where, yes, it's a sequel, but man, just like the story, the characters, the rhythm, the pacing, the thrills, just everything works in that movie. It might be my favorite as well.
Yeah,
non-horror.
And I think, everybody says, you don't make movies like Jurassic Park or, Jaws anymore. I think like 2 movies that came out recently or somewhat recently that you can say were like those movies was Jurassic World and Top Gun. Like the classic summer blockbuster movie, like the way they used to make them.
Right.
So does any of you guys have a submission to the Goblet of Fire for your least favorite movie of this year?
Oh, please. And the only reason I begged is because of how you introed that, because you said submission for the Goblet of Fire.
I know
my submission is Secrets of Dumbledore. So listen, here's the thing. I have such high affection for the Harry Potter franchise, the core films, the books. I have a lot of affection. I know that J.K. Rowling as a public figure has become somewhat controversial in recent years, and I'm not, kind of touching on that. The Harry Potter franchise is impeccable. It is just it is classic in every way. I watched The Secrets of Dumbledore with my wife. We have seen all the Fantastic Beasts film. We love the Harry Potter movies. We've watched them multiple times. And I won't speak for her, but I'll speak for myself. Like a half hour in, and even just an hour in, I was like, I really said, I don't know what this franchise is going to have to do to make me care about this. I do not care anymore about this particular subset. And so my biggest disappointment, my possibly my least favorite movie of the year. I don't know if I would say it's objectively the worst movie I saw. It still looks great. It's got some wonderful effects, and the performances are still worth noting. But in terms of, it is without contest my biggest disappointment of the year, and I already had low expectations. So Secrets of Dumbledore is what I'm tossing into the Goblet of Fire. So
all right,
yep,
that's me. You go.
Mine would be a little movie that got released directly to, I think it goes directly to Netflix. And it was a movie from a long-going franchise that has had a very sordid history of bad sequels. And that would be the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
I knew you were going there. Yeah.
Oh God, they were already so low,
and he knew he was going there. That's the funny thing about it.
They were already so low in the franchise. There had been so many like bad sequels, like 1 and 2. You could argue the merits of some people didn't like 2 because it was a different movie than 1, but like
sure
3, 4 on, and then all the remakes, the beginning, and all those. Just I had such low expectations going in, and it somehow went lower than all those. So if I was going to throw one in, it would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
The quasi remake sequel reboot that they made this year.
Yeah.
My least favorite would have to be, and when I heard the announcement for this movie, I got excited because I wanted to see what this director would do with this beloved franchise. Rob Zombie's The Monsters. I wanted to love it.
Really?
I didn't even finish it. That's how bad it was.
It's on my list still. I haven't watched it yet. I've heard mixed things, so.
Yeah, and like.
Well, I will.
At best.
You're going.
Yeah, the jokes.
Go ahead, Drew.
Set up good. To like when, I think it's Lily Munster. She goes out on that date with Count Orlok from Nosferatu. Funny premise. And then he shows her pictures of his pet rats with, that's tied to Count Orlok. Again, funny thought or funny idea. For some reason, it did not work out at all. And the movie looks amazing. Like, I would have this on the background in a Halloween party, but the jokes were not landing for me at all. And I wanted them to. I really, really wanted to like this movie.
I am in the severe, I think it's more and more severe minority. I adored The Munsters. I am in a very big minority. Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, because most people did not. The broad consensus is no, thank you. I am definitely in the rarity. I won't go into all the reasons now, but yeah, I responded in a positive way, very very strongly to it. It's not going to make my top 10, to be fair, but I responded very well to it. One thing I will cite, the only thing I'll cite on this, is I respond very well to vibrant, like kind of a color palette. It's hard to light rich colors. That's a harder task than you think it would be. And this film is very, very colorful. It's almost psychedelic in places, and I just ate that up. I thought that was great. So yeah, but I hear you. I think a lot of people would agree with you, Drew, that it did not work.
So Eric,
you were definitely in the minority. Yeah, for everyone I've talked to about it, they were like, it was fine. I've heard 1 or 2 people go like, you know what, pretty good. Like like, you know what, okay, I was on its vibe, but those are few and far between.
So, Eric, I don't know why I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
I already know what your answer is going to be. What is your most anticipated movie of 2023?
Oh, see, I don't know. I thought you. What do you think my most anticipated movie?
Cocaine
I mean,
Bear?
I do want to see Cocaine Bear, but I don't know if that's my most anticipated. I honestly don't know what else is coming out next
off
year.
In that trailer last night.
It does look pretty great. I will say. But I don't know. I guess I'll say Cocaine Bear because I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't know anything
exactly.
else that's coming out right now off the top of my head. I don't really know anything else that's coming out. What is your most anticipated movie besides Cocaine Bear?
I'll
Obviously.
let Reed go first. I like to let the
Okay.
guest go first.
Okay.
Listen, I mean, if they meet the deadline, there is only one answer to this question. If they meet the deadline and release it next year, could get pushed out. But if it releases next year, David Gordon Green's take on The Exorcist. The Exorcist is my favorite
Okay.
movie of all time. I really responded very strongly to what he did with the Halloween franchise, his little trilogy. So yeah, my most, and again, I say that with a little asterisk as like, we don't quite know if it's going to come next year, but it's
Right.
slated for next year. So if everything goes according to plan, that is my most anticipated. I am eager, chomping at the bit to
Right.
get David Gordon Green's The Exorcist because I'm very curious to see what he does with my favorite film of all time. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
going to be a interesting release for sure. Mine had a hard time. I had a couple or a few ones I wanted to go through, but I mean, this is part of another long going series. It's a Marvel movie, and it's one of my sequel to one of my favorite Marvel movies, and that's going to be Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3.
Yeah.
This one just looks so emotional, and I never would have thought they were gonna play In the Meantime by Space High in a Guardians
Hmm.
movie because it's more like 70s music.
Right.
Mhm.
And the part that really got me in this trailer was when Rocket hugs the otter because he sees somebody that's very similar to him probably in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That trailer's emotional, man. Got me right in
Yeah.
the feels.
Yeah. So that was that. And now it's time for the big announcement. Everybody hold on to your butts. Next year, early next year, me, Eric, and Jackson Harbor, we're going to go through the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That's awesome.
It's going to be an undertaking.
Yeah, so we're gonna
Eric's already tired.
There's so many ups and downs in that in those 12, 13 movies.
yeah.
So many ups and
Yeah,
downs.
but
It's just the movies, right? I need to clarify this. Is it movies and television shows?
yeah, the Disney Plus one. But we'll break it up in
Ooh,
small,
okay.
small bits to make it a little bit easier.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So with that being said, since we just talked about the Christmas Carol, for the longest time I had an idea to do I thought it would be cool to do Marvel as the Christmas Carol. Just have all the characters as, Marvel characters.
Sure.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'm gonna run through my cast list real quick.
Okay.
And Ebenezer Scrooge, obvious, has to be Tony Stark Iron Man.
Okay.
If
Okay.
Bob Classic, my dream would be Peter Parker Spider-Man. Because, he's a mentor towards Tony Stark.
Mm-hmm.
Aunt May as Tiny Tim, just because I remember in the comic book Aunt May was always getting sick, so that would play in. Obadiah Stane would have to be Jacob Marley, an old, companion of
Mhm.
Stark. This one was kind of hard. I was cycling through a few different characters, but actually ended up on this one. We got to go my boy Vision for Ghost of Christmas Past.
Oh, I like
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thor and the Hulk as the Ghost of Christmas Present. Because I think Thor has the personality of that character. And then I love the banter between the two characters.
Mm.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And this is my most genius one. Ghost Rider at the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, because there's always, there's a hell element to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then right before
Pretty cool.
lands into the fiery pit, it reveals that Ghost Rider is actually Deadpool. And you just get a little quip in my version of my head.
Okay.
That's cool.
This is kind of a weird one, but I couldn't think of anybody else except for this character. James Rhodes wore missing as Fred, Bruce's cousin or nephew. And Jensen, the man that he met in the cave in the first Iron Man, as Fozziwig, because he was a mentor to him.
Okay.
Another obvious one, Pepper Potts as Belle.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then for Fran, Ebenezer's sister is going to be Maria Stark.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then as the charity workers, I want to go with Captain America and the Black Widow because I'm picturing them kind of like recruiting Iron Man back into the Avengers in my version.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's that. I thought that was kind of a fun thing to do.
That is fun. I'm gonna have to think about what my
Nice.
cast list is. I wouldn't have it off the top of my head. That's a fun idea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I want to do just to wrap things up, because I know this has been a long video. Reed has a character called Lackey the Listicle that he does on his show. And before I get you to say the thing I wanted to say, how would you explain to my audience what Lackey the Listicle is?
Yes. Okay. So Lackey the Listicle is a character, the name of which just came from the fact that on our show, The Fear of God, my co-host and friend of 20 plus years, Nathan Rouse, knows that I love making lists. I fine-tune lists. If there's it's like I give consideration to the most absurd granular things of saying like, "Ooh, what is my favorite flavor of Mountain Dew, ranked third through fifth?" All those kind of, like those are the things that I
Okay,
spend
Sheldon
my
Cooper.
time with. So I just love doing that. And so then one time we sort of enshrined me doing this character where when I had a list of either films or subjects or things to present to our listening audience, he dubbed me as Lackey the Listicle. So I took on a little persona as like I stopped being Reed at that point, and now I'm Lackey the Listicle, the occasionally listless list making lackey. So that's
So Reed, here's what I want you to do. In your Lackey the Listicle persona, I want you to say,
Okay.
from Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, a Christmas classic, I want you to say, Merry Christmas, you filthy animal, and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal, and Happy New Year.
Oh.
I'm sorry if my laugh is going home. That's maybe
Button.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
but anyways, guys, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sticking with me for the last couple of years. It really means a lot to me from what was said in our theme section. This allows me to talk about what I want to talk about and what I love, my passion in life. And so I promise you that every year I want to get better with this. And next year is going to be better than last year. And I'm gonna keep putting out
Absolutely.
more consistent
Here, here.
content.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah. Yep. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Right
Thanks
now,
for
Colin.
Yeah.
thanks for inviting me along. This is fun. This
Yeah,
is
you
very
don't
fun.
know
It was
how
very
stressed
nice to meet you.
You don't know
Yes.
how,
Okay.
Fairness to you.
you want to know even want to know how stressed I was to get all three of us together.
Oh,
It had like
I believe
work
it.
stuff
No,
and
I
then
believe it.
planning this out, and then
Oh, I
we had to
believe it. I'm
plan
glad
our
it worked
Violent
out.
Night screening together, Eric, because we have to see that together. Yeah,
Of course.
so I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, from my family to you, from the horror and sci-fi and beyond family, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and see you next year with the 80s fantasy review. Bye, guys.